Torah class with Rabbi Chernitsky, yours truly, Director of Chabad of Newfoundland. Today, we're going to speak about Lag BaOmer, the 33rd day of the Omer, which is this coming Saturday night going into Sunday. And Lag BaOmer commemorates a number of historical events, significant events in Jewish history. We have the famous one, which is the passing, what we call the yard site of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. If you know, thousands of Jews go to Meron, the north of Israel, to visit his grave, his resting place, and ask him to intercede on our behalf. He should pray on our behalf to Hashem, pray to God on our behalf, and elicit tremendous, tremendous blessings. Also, it's the day that the students of Rabbi Akiva stopped dying. We know that the period of the Omer, we just said that Saturday night is the 33rd day of the Omer. So what is the Omer? The Omer was an offering of barley brought during temple times. The Torah speaks about this clearly. And it was brought the second night of Passover and the second night of Pesach. And that's called the Omer. And from there, we have 49 days from the second night of Pesach until Shavuot, when we commemorate the giving of the Torah. There's many more details, but we're trying to keep it simple. So the period of the Omer, those 49 days, from the second night of Pesach until Shavuot, are a time of mourning in Judaism. There's different customs when the period of mourning begins. In Chabad, we keep the whole 49 days. Sephardim, Ashkenazim have different customs when they begin, when they end, but they do not keep the whole 49 days. What does that mean, period of mourning? It's a time where we don't take haircuts, we don't do weddings, we don't listen to live music. Some don't listen to recorded music either. And this is important. Why? Because Lag BaOmer, it's a happy day, because the students of Rabbi Akiva, who were dying all throughout, stopped dying. All of them. Rabbi Akiva had 24,000 students, and they were slowly dying until 33rd day of the Omer. So that's why the Omer, the 49 days, is a time of mourning, because of the students of Rabbi Akiva. And why is the 33rd day special? We said two reasons. Number one, it's the anniversary of the passing of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. And we're going to speak about during this class, why is that a happy day? We'll get to that. But that's reason number one. Reason number two, and this is something that actually happened earlier, chronologically, is the students of Rabbi Akiva stopped dying. Now, this in and of itself requires an explanation, but we'll see if we can get to the end of the class. Now we're going to focus on the fact of why is it that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and Lag BaOmer get so much attention. If you see what happens in Israel on a regular year, this year we can go, it's closed because of the war with Hezbollah in the north, but on a regular year, hundreds of thousands of people go to Meron. There's bonfires, there's dancing, celebration. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, known as the Rashbi for short, is the second most visited holy site in Israel. It's completely unheard of. No other sage, rabbi, gets the same attention as Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. The question is why? And if you stop somebody on the street and you ask him, why are you going up to Meron, to his resting place? Not necessarily can he tell you in full detail, give you a full answer why he is going. Anybody that's there feels that there's something special, but we want to speak in concrete terms. What is it about this holy man that this day became such a special day? He's the most visited holy site after the Kotel, after the Western Wall, which is an amazing, amazing thing. So let's take it from the beginning. What we're going to see is that there's two main reasons that so many people are connected with Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Number one is that going to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai on the day of Lag BaOmer, on the day of his passing, is like Yom Kippur, like the day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, for the people going there. And number two is a special connection, that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai helps a Jew connect with the infinite Hashem. Where does this custom begin? To go to the grave of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai on Lag BaOmer, or at any time for that matter. The earliest sources that we have are from a letter of Rav Avadia Bar Tenura. This goes back to the 15th century. And then a little bit later, not too much later, is the Arizal, the holy Arizal, the teacher of Kabbalah, who was from Egypt and then moved to Tzfat. We have that in the sources. Let's open up the sources. I have to close everything that's in between the sources and me. Here. Source number 1. Rabbi Avadia Bar Tenura, in a letter from the year 1489, writes as follows. On the 18th of Iyar, which is when Lag BaOmer falls out, so the 33rd day of the Omer always falls out the 18th of the Hebrew month of Iyar. I'm continuing to read inside of the letter. The day of his death, of the Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, people come from all the surrounding areas like large torches. Many barren women were remembered, i.e. blessed with children, and the sick were healed through vows and donations they pledged to the site. Vows and donations to give to charity, give to tzedakah. Okay, so this is the earliest source that we have, that Lag BaOmer is marked as a special day. There's people going to Meron, and also the special blessings of barren women being remembered and being blessed with children, which, by the way, is also something we saw by the Chabad Rebbes. It's a time when they gave people blessings for children. Then the next paragraph, source number 1, this is the Shar HaKavanot of the Arizal, who lived in the early 16th century, as follows. Regarding the custom of the Jews to go Lag BaOmer to the grave of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, they eat and rejoice there. So now this is the words of Rabbi Chaim Vital speak about his teacher, the Arizal. I saw my teacher, the Ari, who went there once, Lag BaOmer, with all his household, his whole family. He stayed there for the first 3 days of the week. This was the first time after he came from Egypt. That's the first time that he went to Meron. Now he tells another story that happened there, and we're going to see how that's relevant to us. Rabbi Avram HaLevi, one of the students or contemporaries of the Arizal, also testified that in that mentioned year, he too went there and was accustomed to say every day in the blessing of Jerusalem in the Amidah, the Shemona Esrei, the standing prayer that we say 3 times a day. He would add in the blessing of, when we speak about the rebuilding of Jerusalem, he would add Nachem. Nachem is usually only said on Tisha B'Av, the day when we commemorate the destruction of the temple, and speaks about asking Hashem, asking God to console us for we're mourning for the temple, etc. But this Rav Avram HaLevi would say it every single day. So he would also say it when he prayed at Meron, at the resting place of the Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. I'm continuing to read inside. So after he finished the Amidah, my teacher told me that he saw Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai in a waking vision, standing by his grave, and said, tell this man, Rav Avram HaLevi, why does he say Nachem on the day of our rejoicing? And thus, he will have consolation soon, and after a month, the disaster befell his family, God forbid. He lost a family member, a close family member, because he said this prayer of Nachem, which is sad, asking for consolation at a time when we should be happy, which we're going to get to that later on, more why this is a happy day. But this is the fact that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said that it's a happy day. The day he passed away, it's a happy day, it's a special day. Now, why is that relevant to us? Because this is quoted by one of the main commentators to the Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Jewish Law, the Magen Avraham, and he says, we see from here that we do not say Tachanun on Lag BaOmer. We don't say this penitential prayers. We always say the prayers where we ask Hashem for forgiveness, for atonement, we do not say them the whole day of Lag BaOmer. What's the source? This story with Rav Avram HaLevi, who used to say this addition to the Amidah, the Nachem, every single day. Okay. So if you look at the Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Jewish Law, we have that here also. This is the last paragraph of source number 1. We're gonna. This is the Code of Jewish Law, the section Arachaim, chapter 493. The custom is not to get a haircut until Lag BaOmer, right? From Pesach until Lag BaOmer. As it is said that this one day the students of Rabbi Akiva stopped dying. And the rest, this is what I really said outside of the text, that we don't say the Tachanu, the prayers asking Hashem for forgiveness, which are usually said every weekday. Okay. We still don't know what is so special about this holy man, the Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. And one of the things that the early rabbis point out is that he helps us connect to Hashem in a very special, deep way. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said about himself that, I'll say it in Hebrew, then I'll translate, I could exempt the whole world from Hashem's harsh judgment. Why? He said it's because, according to one explanation of the Sefer Hasidim, it's because of all the suffering he went through. We have this in source number 2. This is the Talmud, Tractate Sukkah, page 45b. Rabbi Yirmiyahu said in the name of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, I can accept the entire world from judgment from the day I was created until now, and if my son Eliezer is with me, from the day the world was created until now. Now the Sefer Hasidim writes as follows. On this quote, he says that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said that I have performed many meritorious deeds and endured much pain and suffering. These sufferings are received unjustly as they hit the cave and the miracle occurred, creating a current tree and a spring of water, and they would sit buried up to the neck in sand. I'll just say this outside. What happened is that the Romans who were at the time of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai in control of Jerusalem, just after the destruction of the Second Temple, they were chasing after Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. They wanted to imprison him, kill him, because he had said not nice things over the Romans. He ran away to their cave together with his son, and many miracles occurred, so they had what to eat, what to drink. Long story short, they endured tremendous suffering, even as they hid from the Romans in that cave. They were there for 13 years. So the Sefer Hasidim says, how is it that this holy rabbi, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, he could exempt the whole world from judgment? He says, because all of the suffering that he went through, that covers the whole entire world. Now, the next source that is on the next page, also under number 2, one of the top of the second page. This is from the Maharsham, response to the Maharsham. He wrote it after the fact, but it's the eulogy he said for his wife when she passed away. He said a very special thing. He said, and this explains to us why Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is so special and why so many go to visit his resting place on this day of Lag BaOmer. He makes an interesting analysis. He says that in the Talmud, the tractate that speaks about Shabbat, what we can do on Shabbat, there's an argument between Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and the sages. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says, the dispute is, what happens if two people do together melacha, forbidden type of labor, and it's something that one person could have done. So, for example, they carry outside a beam that's not very heavy, and one person could carry it. Now, it's being carried by two people. Are the people chayev? Did they commit a sin and therefore need to bring an offering? Or are they potter? Or are they exempt? In other words, is this the regular way to do the type of work? So the sages say that both people have sinned at the biblical level, need to bring an offering to atone for themselves. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says that each one is patur, each one is exempt, because none of them did a full melacha. None of them did the work in full, because it's something that could be done by one person. They was divided in two, so therefore they're both exempt. So says the Maharsham on this point that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, he exempts the world from judgment because he says that any sin is done by two entities. This is a beautiful thing. You hear this, you want to cry. He says, what's sin? There's the body and there's the soul. The body needs the soul needs the body. The body is lazy, the body has temptations, the body has bad inclinations, the soul wants to connect with God. It doesn't want to have anything to do with sin. And so says the Maharsham, according to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, that two people that do a work on Shabbos, on Shabbat, that is the work of one person, is divided in two, they are exempt. Says this is the same idea by sin. As sin, any action is done by two entities, the body and the soul. And therefore, really, people are exempt. They can't hold them accountable, just like when it comes to Shabbat. Beautiful, beautiful thing. And we're about to read this inside the text. Just keep in mind the context. Keep in mind that he's going to reference, the Maharsham references a discussion that happened between Antoninus, the Roman emperor, and Rabbi Yehuda Anasi. They both had a very, very special relationship. Antoninus had a secret tunnel, so he could meet with Rabbi Yehuda Anasi. They had all sorts of philosophical, deep discussions recorded in the Talmud. And one of the things that this Antoninus, the Roman emperor, said, he said, really, people should be exempt for anything that they do, because there's a body and there's a soul involved, and the soul wants to connect to Hashem. If it wasn't for the body, the soul would never be schlepped, would be dragged into sin. And if it wasn't for the and the body says, well, I can't do anything without the soul. The body's just dead. It's just a lump of flesh without the soul enlivening it. And so each one on their own could argue that they didn't do anything. The body in and of itself can't move. The soul in and of itself will never sin. So it's a similar idea to what we just said before. So let's look at it inside the sources. Source number 2 on the top of page 2. Response of the Maharsham, introduction to part 2. To explain what Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said, I can exempt the entire world from judgment. According to the words of Antoninus to Rebbe in the Tractate of Sanhedrin, in the Talmud, the body and soul can exempt themselves from judgment, because the body says, the soul sinned. Since the day that it separated from me, I am lying like a stone. And the soul says, the body sinned. Since the day separated from it, I am flying in the air like a bird. This is after a person passes away. So the answer of Rebbe is, I'll give you a parable. A king had a beautiful orchard and placed 2 guards, one lame and one blind. And the way it worked is that the lame one and the blind one had to work together to steal the fruits, right? The blind one could walk, the lame one could see, and so they worked together. They were accomplices to steal the fruits from the orchard of the king. So each one argued to the king, says, you can't punish me. Once the king caught them, you can't punish me because I didn't do anything. So what did the king do? He put the lame man on top of the blind one, just as they themselves would do to go and steal the fruits, and he whipped them when they were like that. So Rabbi Yehuda Nasi answers Antoninus that and behold that if 2 people did the work, okay, he doesn't spell it out here, but that's what it is. He's saying that the same thing with the body, Hashem will bring the soul and body together and punish them together. Continuing inside the source, and behold that if 2 people did the work, this is about Shabbat, as I was saying out before, if one cannot do it alone and the other cannot do it alone, they're both liable according to the sages. But Rabbi Shimon holds that they're exempt, they're patur. And one can say the same applies to other prohibitions, not just Shabbat. Therefore, body and soul since this one cannot do it by itself, and the other one cannot do it by itself, they are exempt from judgment. And even though we do not hold like Rabbi Shimon when it comes to the halacha, the actual law, nevertheless today, the day of Lag BaOmer, which is the day of celebration of Shimon Bar Yochai, his merit will protect all the deceased to be exempt from judgment. Fascinating thing is that usually day to day the law doesn't follow Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, but the day of his passing, so to speak, the law follows him, and in that merit, he exempts everybody. So Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Lag BaOmer, the day of his passing, it's like a Yom Kippur. It's Yom Kippur, Day of Atonement. That is one reason why this day attracts so many people to his resting place, because of this tremendous, tremendous atonement that happens, and it's unparalleled to anything except for Yom Kippur itself, which is one day of the year. The Zoom is about to cut off. I'll restart it once it cuts off. Don't worry about that. Maybe let's wait for the Zoom, and then we'll continue with the class. Just a few more seconds. Actually, let's close the Zoom and we'll start it again. Let's do that. Okay, just started the Zoom again. Give another second for people to join. Give it another minute. Here we go. Okay, so continuing on, this idea that we just saw from the Maharsham, that explains how according to Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, everybody will be exempt, cannot be punished for their sins, for their averes. We see a similar thing. It's a beautiful story with the first Rebbe of Chabad, the Alter Rebbe, that he sent one of his followers to Rav Shlomo Karliner. One of his followers came. He needed a blessing for something very specific, and the Alter Rebbe, the first Rebbe of Chabad, instead of granting the blessing, he sent his chassid, his follower, to his colleague, Rav Shlomo of Karlin. And so the follower, he wants to follow his Rebbe's instructions to the T, as Hasidim do, so he goes to Rav Shlomo of Karlin. He tells Rav Shlomo of Karlin the whole story. And Rav Shlomo of Karlin tells him that he could only help him if he gives him 10,000 rubles, which was a lot of money. So the Chassid says, well, we really need a blessing, but it's a lot of money. I have to go ask my wife. Rav Shlomo of Karlin says, no, I need to know now. The Chassid says, I'm sorry, I can't answer you without asking my wife first. So the Chassid goes back home to Liadi, consults with his wife. His wife is game. She tells him to go ahead with the 10,000 rubles. He gets the money. He goes back to Rav Shlomo of Karlin. And Rav Shlomo of Karlin says, I'm sorry, I cannot help. It's too late. It's too late. So he goes back to the Alter Rebbe, the first Rebbe of Chabad. And he says, I don't understand what happened here. So the Alter Rebbe explains, and he says, the day you went to see Rav Shlomo of Karlin, that day was Chav Teves, the Hebrew calendar. It was the 20th day of the Hebrew month of Teves. That day is the yahrzeit. It's the anniversary of the passing of the Rambam Maimonides. Why is that important? Because you, my dear follower, you once offended, you once said something detrimental, something negative about the Maggid of Mesrich. It was in passing. Maybe you didn't mean it, but insulting a scholar leaves a stain on the soul. And there's an opinion in the Talmud that a person who insults a Torah scholar, a Talmud Chacham, has to pay what's called the litra de hava, a certain amount of gold. Now, the law doesn't follow that opinion. And the law is that insulting a scholar only requires you to ask for forgiveness, not to actually pay. Now, when you visited Rav Shlomo of Karlin, it was the anniversary of Passing of the Rambam. On the anniversary of Passing of the Rambam, Maimonides, the halacha, the Jewish law, goes according to his opinion. And Maimonides codifies into the Yad HaChazaka, his magnum opus, the code of Jewish law, that somebody who insults a Talmid Chacham, as a Torah scholar, has to pay the litra that they have, has to pay X amount. So the Rav Shlomo of Karliner gave you a chance to rectify your mishap. That comment they made about the Maggid of Mesrich by paying that amount of money. You went to consult with your wife. Then you came back. By the time you came back, it wasn't Chav Teves anymore. It was a different day. In a different day, he couldn't help you. The anniversary of passing of the Rambam, Meron is already passed, and the halach and the Jewish law does not follow his opinion. Another side the Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai we're going to speak about is how he illuminated the Torah, right? He's the master of Kabbalah. The Zohar was authored by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. The teachings of Kabbalah were first passed from teacher to student, to teacher, student, amongst very, very small circles. And then it exploded later when the Zohar was discovered, and the Arizal a couple of centuries later. And it's Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai that illuminated the Torah for us. We see that in a fascinating idea. Most Jews count, when we do the mitzvah of counting the Omer, we say today's whatever day, La Omer, to the Omer. According to few opinions, the Gro, the Vilna Gaon, and the Ramah Moshe Isherlis, you should be say La Omer. Sorry, Ba Omer. Right? So again, most people say La Omer, minority opinions, Ba Omer. Okay? Now, when it comes to the 33rd day, the anniversary of passing Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai that we're speaking about in this whole class, how does everybody call it around the world? Lag Ba Omer. Even though most of us count La Omer. Okay? Why? So the source of this is unclear, but the idea is that Lag Ba Omer, written in Hebrew, so Lag is Lamed and Gimel, and Ba Omer, base, Ein, Mem, Resh, without a Vav, has the numerical value, the gematria of 345, which equals the numerical value of Moses, Mem, Shin, Hey. And we know that in Hebrew, when two words have the same numerical value, that reveals that they have an intrinsic connection. And so Lag BaOmer, the day of passing Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, is connected to Moses. Why? Because Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is the Moses of the esoteric parts of the Torah was known as the Penimius HaTorah, the deeper, the mystical dimension of the Torah, the Kabbalah. And that's why this day is so special. So many people are connected to it, because Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is the one that illuminated our eyes and taught the deep secrets of the Torah. There's another source I would like to read inside the text. Source number 3 is from the Talks of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Look at the very beginning, Likutei Sichos 7337. In the books of the Polish Rebbe's, it is noted that Lag BaOmer without the Vav has a numerical value as Moshe 345. It is also mentioned in Kabbalistic writings, Emer Kamalach 62:4, that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was a spark of Moses and ascended to the same light that Moses received when he went out to receive the second set of tablets on Mount Sinai. Okay, we're going to skip the second part of number 3. Okay. Sigmund Freud, famous for his work on psychoanalysis, what did he teach? He taught that there is more than greets the eye. A person is struggling, a person is having a hard time with something. Not necessarily is it because his boss screamed at him because he lost his job, but really deep within his psyche, deep within, he has past trauma he never addressed. He has a memory he's disturbed by, and so on and so forth. He thought that we're affected by factors we can't see, more than greets the eye. And lehavdil, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai did the same thing when it comes to the deep secrets of the Torah. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai taught us that there is more than what greets the eye. Moses gave us the revealed part of the Torah, what to do, what not to do, when to do it, when not to do it. And Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, his teachings of Kabbalah, are all about who is Hashem, who is God, how did he create the world, what's beyond the world, what is the meaning behind the mitzvot, what's the meaning behind the mitzvahs, the commandments that we do, what is accomplished in the spiritual realms, what is accomplished in the spiritual realms when we study Torah, the tremendous union that happens between man or woman and Hashem, and one studies Torah and connects with that very, very deep way. Likewise, we just came from Passover, of course, just a few short weeks ago. And there's a question that's asked. Why did the Jews need to go through the Yam Suf, the Sea of Reeds, mistranslated as the Red Sea? Why? If you look at a map, before the Suez Canal was dug out, the Jews could go from Egypt to the land of Israel without going through the Yam Suf, without going through the Sea of Reeds. So one explanation is, on this thought, that it was important for the Jews to see the sea splitting, to see that beyond the water there was the dry land, to see this idea that there's more than greets the eye, to see this idea of the spirituality, the godliness that lies within every single thing in this world. Though we can't see it with the naked eye, we can't see it with our fleshly eyes, it's there, it's present, it's potent. And that's what enlivens every single thing. Now, to summarize, we said Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is very special. He's like a defense attorney, a lawyer for the Jewish nation. Going to him on Lag BaOmer is like a mini Yom Kippur, that with his, either because of all his suffering, as we saw earlier, or because of his opinions in Jewish law, he's able to exempt everybody from punishment from their sins, God forbid. We also said that he's the great teacher of Kabbalah, Jewish mystical thought, that he shows us a deeper dimension to life that's more than greets the eye. He shows us how to connect to God, to Hashem, in a deeper way. And he is like the Moses of the secrets of the Torah. Now, the question is, Why is the yahrzeit the day of passing and day of celebration? A yahrzeit, the anniversary of passing, is a sad day. And the answer is very simple, that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai himself, he said that it's a happy day. The term that the Sephardi Jews use for an anniversary of passing is Hilula. Hilula literally means a wedding, representing the spiritual union between the righteous person that passed away and God. The Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is the first one to use this term. He coined the term Hilula as far as the day of passing. And he said that people should rejoice in the day of my Hilula, the day of my wedding, literally referring to his day of passing. So why is it a happy day? Because he said it's a happy day. And on our part, we celebrate the atonement that's accomplished. We celebrate the teachings of Kabbalah that he gave us. The zest that we have in our day-to-day Judaism is next to him. And, my dear friends, this is today's class. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Lag BaOmer, again this year, 5784, 2024, starting Saturday night over to Sunday. It's a happy day. It's a special day. Use it out. Somebody needs a blessing for children. It's very auspicious for being blessed with that blessing. Thank you for joining us. Hope to see you again, God willing, next week, Wednesday, 8 p.m.